I am the favored consort of the harem, and at the palace banquet, my daughter touched the Empress's pregnant belly and called out little sister. I immediately knelt down to apologize, but the Empress smiled and said that children's words should not be taken seriously, yet in the blink of an eye, my daughter was sent to an enemy country as a hostage. She was only 5 years old, and when she returned to me, she was already a cold, lifeless body. The Empress sneered. It's a good thing it was Princess Wanqing who died. She loved her sister so much, she surely couldn't bear to see any of her other sisters meet such an end. She feared I would seek revenge and kill her, so she lied, claiming I had chosen to end my own life, unable to bear the pain of losing my daughter. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the palace banquet that night. Shenwanxia, it's a pity your daughter was too restless, now that she's dead. You don't have to wag your tail like a lapdog in front of me. It's disgusting, because soon, you'll be joining her. As the jewel-encrusted dagger slit my throat, I stared wide-eyed, hearing only the triumphant laughter of the Empress. Everything turned into a bloody blur. Your Highness, who, my arm, numb from being used as a pillow, was gently patted, and I jolted awake, springing up from the soft couch. Your Highness, no matter how anxious you are, how could you fall asleep here? Be careful not to catch a cold. I stared in astonishment at the woman gently covering me with a thin blanket. Wasn't that my personal maid, Baiji? She smoothed my clothes for me, her gaze focused as she added hot tea to my cup, a touch of sorrow appearing between her brows. The Empress suddenly miscarried tonight, and the entire palace is unsettled, waiting for news. I just managed to put the princess to sleep. But I'm afraid there will be more commotion tonight. As she spoke, I glanced around the room. In this palace filled with the faint scent of sandalwood, the golden phoenix and butterfly tassel hairpin bestowed by the Empress Dowager tonight still lay on the tea table. Just now, Baiji said she had just put the princess to sleep. My nose tingled with sourness, and my eyes reddened, almost bringing tears to the verge of falling. I pinched myself hard. I had actually been reborn. Before I could think further, the palace door was knocked, and eunuch Xia from the Empress's side had arrived. Lady Consort Shu, by the decree of His Majesty the Emperor and Her Majesty the Empress, you and the princess are requested to come at once. No one is to obstruct. He spoke with such severity and haste that it provoked Baiji to mutter under her breath for quite a while. The princess has already retired for the night, even if the crown prince were to be born. Surely there's no need for such urgency. Eunuch Xia remained silent, but my hand trembled as I set down the teacup. In my previous life, it was exactly like this. Eunuch Xia spoke in such a cryptic way that I was completely unprepared. As soon as I arrived at the Empress's palace, she preemptively accused me while weeping. In a state of confusion, the charge of a daughter murdering her mother and brother was firmly pinned on me. Baiji, go wake the princess, I said coldly. My gaze gradually steadying. If it's an urgent summons from the Emperor, there's no need to dress up, so as not to keep the Emperor and Empress waiting. At 1001 hash, in my previous life, as soon as I stepped into the Kuan Ning Palace with my daughter, I was hit by a vase thrown by the Empress. The Empress struck first, aiming to catch me off guard and flustered. In this life, I held my daughter and sidestepped to avoid it, then calmly and respectfully paid my respects to the Emperor in the bedchamber. Seeing that she had not hit me, the Empress paused, her gaze falling on my daughter whom I was shielding. A few lines of tears streamed down her face as she spoke with a look of utter despair. Your Majesty, if my child had been born safely, they would have been as lovely as Princess Wanqing. My heart aches so, Your Majesty. The Emperor's expression was unreadable, neither angry nor pleased. He simply held the Empress's hand and coldly instructed me to sit to the side. I held my bewildered daughter close in my arms, my face indifferent as I watched the imperial physician waiting nearby. Your Majesty, the Empress has always had a stable pregnancy, but she has a naturally cold constitution. Therefore, I have been reminding her day and night to be extremely careful with everything she uses. The reason for the premature birth tonight is that the Empress inhaled the scent of Linghan leaves for an extended period during the palace banquet, which caused damage to her body. As Imperial Physician Qi spoke, the Empress leaned against the Emperor, sobbing. She truly looked like an innocent and beautiful woman. I watched coldly, waiting for the Queen to say those words. Sure enough, the Queen's personal maid, Huanxia, rushed out and knelt down, crying out, "Ever since Her Majesty became pregnant, we have been extremely careful, fearing she might bump or fall, and we have been especially meticulous with the incense. But if we are to speak of tonight's palace banquet, the only sachet with the scent of Linghan leaves was the one worn by Princess Wanqing." My daughter trembled with fear in my arms, my gaze towards the Empress turned even colder, as if frozen, her face was pale, and she leaned weakly in the Emperor's embrace. This is my first pregnancy, and I had previously reminded the princess not to wear sachets close to her person, yet today, whether she forgot or for some other reason, she wore one again at the palace banquet. All these years, I have had no children of my own, and I have treated the princess as if she were my own daughter. Yet, I never expected to spoil her so much that she would become lawless and commit such an act as killing her mother and brother. My heart aches so much. The Emperor gently patted the Empress, but his gaze fell upon me. "Consort Shu, what do you have to say in your defense?" Defense, I sneered inwardly, in my previous life. The Empress's sudden attack caught me completely off guard. The reason was simple. The Empress had always been known for her kindness and gentleness, treating the imperial consorts like sisters and doting on Wanqing as if she were her own daughter, granting her every wish. I never imagined it was a deliberate scheme by the Empress to harm me. With her pale face after the miscarriage and her words dripping with blood, when the Emperor asked me what defense I had, I was so panicked that I couldn't utter a single complete sentence. Without even sending anyone to investigate the evidence, Wanqing was convicted of the crime of killing her mother and brother based on a single statement. Wanqing was only 5 years old when she earned her father's disdain. Later, when the enemy nation invaded, she was instigated by the Empress and sent as a hostage to that harsh, bitter land at the mere age of 5. When she returned to me, she was just a stiff corpse in an ice coffin. At that time, my daughter had not yet reached her coming-of-age ceremony. Thinking of this, my heart beats violently. In this lifetime, I will never choose weakness. At 1001 I comforted my daughter and then knelt before the Emperor. Wanqing has a kind heart. She reminded me 3 times a day of the Empress's instructions during her pregnancy. If anyone says she incited conflict between siblings, it's completely unfounded. Wanqing has always been favored by Your Majesty and the entire palace, and she would never stoop to such despicable means to harm the Empress. Remembering the small ice coffin from my previous life, my eyes reddened, and I felt as if my heart were being sliced apart piece by piece. The Empress has lost her child, and I too have felt the same pain. Moreover, Wanqing is only 5 years old. She could never bear the accusation of killing her own mother and brother. Seeing the Emperor's moved expression, I knew I had gambled correctly. Back when the Emperor had just ascended the throne, the situation was still chaotic. Due to the struggles and alliances in the former court and the harem, I lost my first child, that was also the Emperor's first child, and he felt deeply guilty for failing to protect us, mother and child. This is a pain I cannot forget. And it is also a pain that the Emperor cannot let go of. Seeing the Emperor help me up, the Empress's eyes flashed with a hint of anxiety. She had no choice but to feign subtlety, shedding 2 more lines of tears. The palace banquet was crowded, and everyone smelled the scent of Linghan leaves. Does Consort Shu believe that I would falsely accuse a 5-year-old child? I still kept my eyes lowered, my tone calm. I dare not speak recklessly. But I beg Your Majesty to investigate thoroughly and clear Wanqing's name. I signaled to the maid beside me, and the attending matrons came forward with the clothing. Among them was the sachet that Wanqing had worn that night. The Empress's lips involuntarily curled up into a smug smile, which vanished in an instant. The Emperor's gaze followed as Eunuch Xia cut open the sachet, and the imperial physician stepped forward to verify its contents. After smelling it for a long time, he frowned and shook his head. Your Majesty, there is indeed no Linghan leaf in the princess's sachet. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expressions changed. Huanxia, who was beside the Empress, blurted out impossible, and was given a sharp glare by the Empress. Wanqing burst into tears at just the right moment, shrinking into my arms and portraying fear and trembling to perfection. The Empress forced a smile on her face. Just as she was about to speak, I preempted her. Dropping to my knees with a thud, Your Majesty, Your Highness the Empress, this humble consort and Wanqing have proven our innocence. I was choked with sobs, shielding Wanqing as I kowtowed repeatedly. I do not know how Wanqing has offended your Majesty the Empress, that you would urgently summon me for questioning as soon as you awoke from your miscarriage. I apologize to your Majesty and beg for your forgiveness of Wanqing. I wept pitifully, but the Empress's expression changed. Indeed. Who would summon someone so precisely for questioning right after waking from a miscarriage, unless it was all premeditated from the start? As the Empress said, the palace banquet is crowded, but I truly do not understand why the Empress is so certain that it was Wanqing who did it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the Emperor release his hold on the Empress. I covered my face and shed tears, yet couldn't help but curl a faint smile. Earlier, when I had Baiji wake Wanqing, I had already swapped the sachet she was wearing tonight with mine. It only contained some calming herbs, nothing more, and now, Wanqing was dressed in plain clothes, her small, thin body kneeling on the ground with me, crying so hard she could barely catch her breath, which made the Emperor's heart ache. He quickly took her into his arms to comfort her. As luck would have it, there was a commotion outside the hall, and an unfamiliar palace maid rushed in, kneeling before the Emperor. It was my carelessness. I accidentally sprinkled Linghan leaf incense powder into today's ice bucket, which caused Her Majesty the Empress to miscarry. Her Majesty the Empress dotes on the princess. It is all this servant's fault. This servant deserves to die 10,000 deaths. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. Baiji helped me stand up. I did not miss the fleeting trace of ruthlessness that flashed across the Empress's face. The matter was over, without concrete evidence. The Emperor would not believe that the Empress would harm her own flesh and blood, failing to frame Qing. She actually had a backup plan and found someone else to take the blame. The Empress has suffered a miscarriage and should rest well, for the next 3 months. Let the virtuous consort assist in managing the affairs of the 6 palaces. Upon hearing this, the Empress began coughing violently. She wanted to say more, but the Emperor did not spare her a glance. Instead, he looked at me and said gently, "My beloved consort has been wronged. I leave these people to your discretion. Do not let such behavior go unpunished." After saying this, he picked up Wanqing and left. I met the Queen's sinister gaze and smiled slightly. Plotting against the imperial heir, framing the princess. Guards, drag her away and beat her to death. At 1001 the Empress was stripped of her authority to manage the 6 palaces, using her illness as an excuse. She even exempted herself from the daily courtesies. Her Kuan-Ning palace became desolate and empty, while my Changla palace was bustling with activity. All the concubines who were usually on good terms with me, upon hearing that Qing had been wronged, came one after another to offer their comfort. The Emperor, feeling sorry for Qing, sent a continuous stream of rare and precious treasures into my Changla palace. I know the Empress won't just sit back and wait for her fate. In the previous life, when Wanqing was convicted, the Emperor was furious and took his anger out on my family. My father's advice at court was seen as coercing the Emperor, and my brother, stationed far beyond the frontier, was accused of being dissatisfied with the Emperor for his daily patrols. Even my mother was looked down upon at the banquets of court officials' wives, with her lavish jewelry being labeled as ill-gotten gains from corruption. I cannot believe this was not the Queen's doing. One after another, the memorials accusing him reached the Emperor's eyes. Innocence became guilt. The slightest stir was seen as treason. In the end, when my brother returned victorious and sought to use his merit to bring Wanqing, who had become a hostage, back home, ill-intentioned individuals seized the opportunity to make a big issue out of it. Merit became a sword hanging over my head. It ended with the entire family being executed. I couldn't understand why the Empress, who had always been on good terms with me, suddenly seemed like a different person overnight, determined to put me to death. It wasn't until later, when that dagger was pressed against my throat, that the Empress laughed maniacally. "Who allowed you and your daughter to win the Emperor's favor so much? Normally, you rely on his favor to act arrogantly. But even on festive occasions like the Mid-Autumn Festival and the Lantern Festival, you still snatch the Emperor away from me. Do you know how many people in the court and the harem are laughing at me, the Empress, for being incompetent?" Thinking of the tragic fate of the Shen family, I anxiously sent a letter home to ensure their safety. In my previous life, I was despised by the Emperor and had no power to resist, yet the Empress still showed no mercy and sought to eliminate me completely. In this life, I am now the center of all favor and affection. and the Empress must have long wanted to eliminate me. Sure enough, within just 3 days of me sending the letter home, the person I dispatched was intercepted at the palace gate. By the time I arrived in my sedan chair, the person wrapped in sackcloth was already beaten half to death. A section of their exposed calf was mangled and bloody. The Queen, dressed in magnificent robes, sat gracefully to the side. Stop. The guards snatched the wooden sticks from the eunuch's hands. My gaze turned cold as I bowed to the Queen. I wonder what crime my people have committed to trouble your Majesty, who is still unwell, to personally carry out the punishment. Consort Shu's people. The Queen covered her lips with a handkerchief, coughed lightly twice, and looked at me with a playful glint in her eyes. But how is it that I received word that the person who took the royal items out of the palace was none other than Physician Luo? Could it be that the rumors in the palace about Physician Luo being on good terms with Consort Shu are true? Are you secretly exchanging favors? Is he helping you take care of your family, passing messages, and currying favor with the court officials behind the scenes? Consort Shu, how dare you? The teacup slammed heavily on the table. The Empress in a towering rage. I glanced at the person wrapped in coarse cloth, thinking that the other party would arrive soon, and then calmly knelt down. Imperial physicians in the palace are not allowed to treat people outside the palace without an imperial decree, and helping palace concubines deliver letters is a capital offense. If the message being delivered is related to the imperial court or the harem, then even 9 heads would not be enough to pay for the crime. The Empress's words are forceful, as if she can't wait for me to die. What a pity, Your Majesty. Please be cautious with your words. It's just that I've been craving something sour lately and, with the Emperor's permission, I've sent someone outside the palace to find some plums I used to eat as a child. The people I sent are naturally the palace attendants by my side, not Physician Luo. I hope Your Majesty will investigate clearly. I know that the more I defend myself, the more pleased the Empress will be, and the more certain she will feel that she has caught the right person. Sure enough, the Empress sneered and threw an envelope at me. The paper was sharp, cutting my cheek and causing a few drops of blood to seep out. The evidence is clear, yet Consort Shu still tries to deny it. Since the Emperor is still discussing important matters, take her away and lock her in the cold palace. Bai Ji, following my instructions, anxiously kowtowed repeatedly to the Empress, begging for mercy. Your Majesty, please spare her life. My lady is innocent. She is unwell today. I beg for your lenience. People should never celebrate prematurely when things are going well. With a wave of the Empress's hand, someone kicked Bai Ji away. Someone, convey my decree. The virtuous consort has acted without propriety, defiling the inner palace and bringing calamity to state affairs. The sound of uniform footsteps echoed behind me. I staggered, nearly fainting. A pair of strong hands caught and held me. Is this how the Empress manages the imperial harem for me? Everyone knelt down, and the figure in bright yellow on the dragon throne, who else could it be but the Emperor? At 1001 the Emperor gently helped me to my feet. Now, the one kneeling had become the Empress. She had never suffered such humiliation before, so she could only force a smile and recount the whole story, asking the Emperor to punish me. I didn't expect the Emperor to frown and directly scold. Absurd. A few days ago, Consort Shu told me that she is 3 months pregnant. Physician Luo also said that pregnant women have certain food cravings during pregnancy. It was I who allowed Consort Shu to send someone out of the palace. Hearing that I was pregnant, the Empress was stunned, then raised her head and met my gaze. Still unwilling to give up, she pointed at the blood-stained figure wrapped in cloth and the letter beside it. While clutching the Emperor's dragon robe with one hand, I am concerned. How can women of the inner palace be so intimate with men from outside, even carrying personal letters in their pockets? It is truly improper. The entire hall fell silent for a moment. Standing beside the Emperor, I truly felt he was on the verge of laughing in anger. Even if this matter were true, how could a royal scandal be discussed so publicly at the palace gates? This is the Empress's failure. In my previous life, I never realized she was such a foolish person. The steady footsteps paused as the medicine chest was set down, and I watched Luo Mingyang, dressed in official robes, step out from behind the Emperor's sedan chair. Does Your Majesty the Empress refer to this humble official as the outsider man? The Empress widened her eyes, pointed at him, and then looked in disbelief at the person wrapped in burlap like a zongzi. Finally, our gazes met. I responded with a smile, yes. As early as the first day I sent the letter out, I had already detected the spy the Empress had planted by my side. She claimed to be ill externally, but in reality, she never stopped monitoring me. In that case, it actually makes it easier for me to turn their scheme to my advantage. Moreover, the Emperor was in a bad mood due to the loss of his legitimate son. After I informed him of my pregnancy, he was overjoyed, as long as my requests weren't excessive. Naturally, everything was prioritized for me. Luo Mingyang came from a poor family since childhood. It was my father who single-handedly supported him, and every medical book in his home was provided by my father. He naturally had no reason to refuse me. I just didn't expect the Empress to be so impatient, or perhaps she trusted those around her too much. She didn't even take a clear look at the person's face after capturing them. Yet she made such a big fuss about the matter. Your Majesty, it is understandable that the Empress, in managing the 6 palaces and handling numerous affairs, might occasionally make mistakes. I pretended to feel regret and spoke on behalf of the Empress. It's just that my pregnancy is unstable, and I truly cannot bear the accusation of adultery. The Emperor looked at the Empress, whose face was ashen, snorted coldly, and called for a sedan chair to carry me. Your Majesty, spare my life. It was my fault. I saw that Consort Shu, having gained the authority to assist in managing the 6 palaces, became arrogant and domineering, repeatedly disrespecting the Empress. I felt it was unfair to the Empress, which is why I acted rashly and made a mistake. Your Majesty, spare my life. I looked down condescendingly at Huanxia, who was kneeling and begging for mercy. The Emperor flicked his string of beads, and someone immediately dragged her away. The Empress pointed at me, her eyes wide with fury. How dare you set a trap to frame me? Feigning panic, I made to kneel, but the Emperor supported me and helped me up. The Queen has misconducted herself, lacks virtue, and has lost her wisdom. From this day forward, she is forbidden to step outside the palace gates. She shall copy the scriptures 100 times and focus on recuperating in peace. The Emperor seemed too weary to even spare another glance, rising to his feet and departing. Only the sound dissipated into the air. Consort Shu has demonstrated excellent virtue and is hereby promoted to noble consort. Once the royal heir is safely delivered, she shall be further elevated to imperial noble consort. I kneel to receive the imperial decree. In stark contrast to me, the Empress has lost even the last glimmer of light. She collapsed to the ground, allowing the palace attendants to lift her up. I suddenly recalled that in my previous life, when I was framed and sent to the cold palace, I was equally disgraced, pushed to the ground by palace attendants and mocked by the Empress. The pain of a slit throat is truly unforgettable. I gently caressed my lower abdomen and sat down in the sedan chair. No rush, this time, I'm going to take my time playing with her. At 1001 hash, in March of the following year, I safely gave birth to a dragon's son, and the Emperor was overjoyed. However, the matter of being promoted to imperial noble consort had yet to be officially announced. Baiji looked anxious and quietly informed me that the confinement of the Empress in Kuan-Ning Palace had been lifted, and the Emperor had even gone to the Empress's palace for lunch that day. I gently rocked the cradle in my hands, my expression calm. I know that the Queen has not been idle during her confinement. On the contrary, she has been very active in communicating with her family. At that time, the south was suffering from floods while the north was in the grip of a drought, leaving the Emperor overwhelmed with work. The Queen's brother, like a timely rain, gathered a batch of relief supplies and delivered them where they were needed most, alleviating the urgent situation. Meanwhile, rumors spread throughout the palace, claiming that my child was in conflict with the nation's fate, and that his birth had brought about both natural disasters and human calamities. The people in the flower house are so snobbish. When the Empress was under house arrest, they would send all the fresh flowers to our palace first. Now that the Empress is in power, they look down on us. While Baiji spoke with anger, the more I listened, the clearer my mind became. During my pregnancy, I once caught a young imperial physician who tried to alter my prescription for stabilizing the fetus. He was from the Empress's family, very timid, and originally not worth mentioning. But interestingly, I also learned some things from this little imperial physician who had been undercover for a long time. I then ordered my father to have him detained for further investigation. Everywhere was affected by the disaster. Even if the Empress had all the silver in the world, she probably couldn't exchange it for that much grain and fodder. So where did the Empress's brother get his grain and fodder from? No matter how righteously they speak, the Emperor cannot help but be suspicious. I looked at the letter from my brother far beyond the frontier, which mentioned a foreign medicinal pill. This pill can make a woman's belly swell as if pregnant, but she will not actually give birth. I suddenly remembered a sentence the Empress said before killing me in my previous life. She said her child was merely a pawn to solve the family's urgent crisis and was originally meant to be aborted. Unexpectedly, that night Wanqing went up and touched her belly. Saying she hoped for a little sister to keep her company, her face twisted into a grimace as she laughed wildly. Your daughter is as detestable as you are, she can't even speak. What use is a daughter? Of course, I am going to give birth to the crown prince. As her thoughts returned to the present, a carefully wrapped pill fell out of the envelope. I sniffed lightly for a moment, but found the scent somewhat familiar. Baiji also looked puzzled, well versed in medicinal properties. She quickly realized what it was. There is the scent of Linghan leaf in this. I understood then, the Linghan leaf scent that everyone noticed at the palace banquet that night did not come from the sachet. Instead, the Empress had taken this pill and used the opportunity to frame my Wanqing. At 1001 hash, another 3 months passed, and the disasters in various places gradually subsided, but my child, still in swaddling clothes, was inexplicably running a high fever that wouldn't subside. What brings the noble consort Shu to the imperial garden for a leisurely visit today? Has the fifth prince's health improved? I calmly and unhurriedly bowed to the Empress. She resumed the full ceremonial procession befitting an empress, with dozens of palace attendants following behind her. I have heard that a celestial master among the common people prophesied that the fifth prince is in conflict with the nation's fortune. It makes sense, considering that the fifth prince was born during a time of disaster, and just as the world became peaceful, he fell ill. Her expression was well concealed, but unfortunately, her excessive pride still revealed much. I smiled faintly. His Majesty visited the fifth prince the day before yesterday but did not mention this matter. I suppose since the Emperor is the son of heaven, he does not believe in those nameless charlatans who damage the royal reputation. Her Majesty the Empress is in charge of the inner palace and should share the same heart and mind as the Emperor. How could she be so partial and credulous about these matters? The Empress smiled disdainfully. I hope the noble consort can remain this composed all along. Watching the Empress turn and leave with a flick of her sleeve, I recalled the message my father had someone deliver to me a few days ago. The Queen strongly urged the Emperor to summon the Celestial Master and had already sent someone to search for him. However, the Celestial Master who initially spread the rumor had long been captured by my father's men. Since the Queen's people couldn't find him, they intended to use someone else as a substitute. I slowly folded the letter and watched it burn to ashes in the flames. The Queen could find a substitute, and I, naturally, could also find someone to replace the Queen's people. Baiji hurried over with the freshly brewed medicine. Your Highness, the one who poisoned the medicine has come again. Should we capture him this time? I gazed at the gradually darkening evening glow on the horizon and poured the dark, eerie medicinal soup into the soil beside me. Seize him. There are enough fish now. It's time to pull in the net. This grand spectacle, the glory and wealth of the Empress and her clan, should come to an end, at 1001 hash, soon, during the mid-autumn family banquet. I deliberately gave medicine to the child at the feast, following my instructions. Consort Hui intentionally raised doubts. The fifth prince was born strong and healthy. How is it that the more he is treated, the worse his illness becomes? It is precisely this kind of murmuring that can have the effect of the speaker having no intention, but the listener taking it to heart. That night, the Emperor discovered that someone had deliberately poisoned him and was furious. I then promptly brought the person I had captured earlier to the main hall. During the struggle, several pills fell out of his embrace. What is this? Stealing medicine from the palace is a capital offense. I feigned surprise and said. Luo Mingyang exchanged a glance with me, stepped forward to pick it up, sniffed it carefully, and then reported to the Emperor. This pill is not made in the palace. I have seen it before when I was studying abroad. It is a fertility medicine widely circulated among the common people in the western regions. However, because the added ingredients are doubled, it can cause a woman's abdomen to swell day by day as if she were pregnant. but it is not a real pregnancy. When necessary, it can also be aborted, and it is harmless to the mother's body." The Emperor's face was extremely grim, the teacup almost crushed in his grasp. "Who in my harem is using such despicable methods?" The man stammered and hesitated until Baiji struck him hard on the leg with a rod. Then he cried out, "It was the Empress. The Empress ordered me to do it. How dare you?" I immediately rebuked. The Empress recently suffered a miscarriage. How could she commit such a treasonous act as harming the imperial heir? I did not say the pills were needed by the Empress. I merely took advantage of the poisoning incident to mention that the Empress had once suffered a miscarriage, as expected. The Emperor grew suspicious, and I pressed my advantage further. "The Empress is deeply troubled by tonight's incident and is waiting outside the hall to see your Majesty." Upon hearing this, the Emperor snorted coldly. "Is she worried about my heir, or is she worried about her own disgraceful schemes?" The waiting guards, upon receiving the order, tied the man up and began striking him from both sides. By the 8th strike, the man spat out a mouthful of blood and repeatedly begged for mercy. I'll talk. Every time the 5th prince is prescribed a new medicinal formula, the Empress orders me to go to the small kitchen and swap out the ingredients. This medicine is difficult to detect, but it can prolong the 5th prince's illness until he dies. As for that Western region pill, it was also required by the Empress. Her brother coerced me, otherwise, I would never have dared to bring it into the palace. The Empress has always been childless. She fears her position is unstable. Yes, she is afraid. After a few more strikes with the rod, the man completely lost consciousness. I gave a signal to the guard at the door, and he released his grip. The Queen, thinking she had been summoned, hurriedly entered the hall. Absurd. "Look at what you've done." The Emperor, enraged, grabbed a teacup from the table and hurled it violently at the Queen's feet, already feeling guilty. The shattering of the porcelain bowl frightened her so much that she immediately knelt down. I stood beside the Emperor, looking down at her from a superior position. In this life, the roles have been reversed. At 1001 the Empress is no longer the Empress. The Emperor had grown utterly weary of her and revoked her Empress credentials. The decree appointing me as Imperial Noble Consort, though long delayed, has finally arrived. That night, the Empress was just like me in my previous life, dazed and confused, unaware that she was being tricked into revealing information. "I am the Empress who has accompanied and loved you since our days in the residence. Yet, just because I have no children of my own, that wretched consort Shu has repeatedly stolen your Majesty's favor from me. Do you know how my maternal family has scorned me for my incompetence? Do you know how many lonely nights I have spent alone during all those family reunion festivals? I also wish I had a son to keep me company, but I don't." She poured out her grievances word by word, and her reason for hating me was the same as in the previous life. She believed that I had stolen his favor from her all these years after entering the palace. When the old days in the mansion were mentioned, the Emperor seemed moved. The Empress was indeed gentle and kind to others in the past, and she had done nothing wrong. I always knew the Emperor was a man of deep emotions, and I too felt my eyes welling up, appearing utterly heartbroken as I collapsed into his arms, speaking softly. "If you are dissatisfied with me, then direct your anger at me. Why must you trouble my 2 children? Why must you repeatedly seek their deaths? You have also lost a child. As a mother, how could you not understand this pain?" Tears streaming down my face. I explained in detail that she held a noble status and came from a prominent family, and I had no intention of competing with her, but the Queen seemed to have lost her mind, only laughing hysterically as she pulled the phoenix hairpins and tassels from her head one by one, glaring at the Emperor with resentment. "If it weren't for your lack of love for me, why would I have taken the medicine my brother sent to secure my position as Queen? All of this is because of you, Your Majesty." The more the Emperor listened, the colder his gaze toward the Queen became. In the harem, there are constant struggles for favor, but feigning pregnancy and plotting against the imperial heirs are unforgivable crimes. The Empress did not realize when she was dragged out that the pills hidden on the poisoner were actually arranged by me, just like in the previous life, when she arranged for someone to slip a sachet containing Linghan leaves into Wanqing's clothing. At 1001 with the Empress's downfall, her family members are bound to speak up for her. But now with the evidence so clear, how could the Emperor have the heart to listen to praises of the Empress's virtue? Instead, he felt that the Empress's brother was relying on his achievements to coerce the Emperor into forgiving the Empress. "Your Highness, the guards over there have reported that she seems very anxious to get in touch with her family." Baiji came to report while I was trimming a pot of white plum blossoms sent by the Emperor. After being promoted to Imperial Noble Consort, I was busy managing the inner palace, taking care of the consorts who were usually out of favor, and also spending time with my son and daughter. Under my arrangements, 3 consorts in the inner palace are now pregnant. The Emperor was overjoyed and held my hand with deep emotion. "Wanxia, if I hadn't been persuaded by the Empress back then and had appointed you as noble consort to manage the inner palace affairs when you first entered the palace, I might have had a house full of children and grandchildren by now." I simply smiled faintly and reassured the Emperor that everything was for the best. In such cold weather, without supplies, it would be too pitiful to freeze to death. I put down the scissors and looked out the window at the fine snow that had begun to fall unnoticed. Leisurely wiping my hands, "If she wants to make contact, I will lend her a hand," letting her hear clearly how the family she takes such pride in is declining because of her. I exchanged a glance with Baiji and said coldly, "Tell father it's time to start." At 1001 when the rumors about Celestial Master Cha first emerged, father and I had always felt something was off. Natural disasters were occurring frequently across the regions, leading to food shortages. So why did the Empress's faction happen to deliver supplies just in the nick of time? It was fine not to investigate, but once they did, they discovered that the grain sent by the Empress's brother was actually military provisions. Shortly after the Emperor ascended the throne, my brother led troops to pacify the frontier. The soldiers risked their lives, and the Emperor had issued a strict order that the provisions must be delivered to the military camp. At that time, the person in charge of this matter was none other than the Empress's brother, General Murong. He deceived both sides, embezzled the military provisions, and nearly caused my brother to lose the battle and become a sinner for all time. Fortunately, that batch of grain bore the Emperor's personal seal, which allowed it to be recognized even after so many years. The Emperor was furious and stripped General Murong of all his titles, throwing him into prison. My father pressed the advantage, bringing the Celestial Master who had been captured at the time to the main hall and forcing him to confess that he had accepted bribes from the Murong family to fabricate mysteries and slander the prince. In this way, it was linked to the incident of the Empress poisoning the prince. Collusion between the former court and the harem is something the Emperor cannot tolerate the most. It is said that the Emperor flew into a rage, smashing several teacups. And even his personal eunuch had to carry out his duties with his life on the line. The entire Murong family was implicated, and even the retired father of the Empress could not escape punishment. Meanwhile, General Murong, imprisoned in the dungeon, shamelessly boasted that the Emperor would not dare to kill him. He even took off his clothes and loudly proclaimed the sacrifices he had made for the country over the years. He wanted to use this to gain the Emperor's forgiveness for the Empress. His plan was well calculated. As long as the Empress remained, the Murong clan would never fall. Unfortunately, he miscalculated. The Empress had already fallen gravely ill upon hearing that the military provisions had been exposed. These days, I have arranged for the princes and princesses from every palace to play joyfully in front of the cunning palace. Laughter and cheer are the best way to stir the cold and desolate cunning palace, just like in my previous life. After I saw the ice coffin holding Wanxing, the Empress proudly carried her child and frolicked before me every day. Only an enemy knows best how to pierce your heart. The Emperor might spare her life, but I will not allow it. I want her to feel it herself. I will force her to stake her life on this move, never to rise again. Sure enough, on the joyous first day of the Lunar New Year, when the entire palace had let down its guard, she made her move. "Someone, come quickly, there's a fire." At 1001 The fire at Changal Palace took the water-carrying guards and eunuchs a full hour of back-and-forth trips to extinguish. The arsonist's target was clear, not the main hall, but the side halls where the princes and princesses resided. Fortunately, I discovered it that day and managed to evacuate the 2 children in time. The queen was brought forward, her face haggard. She no longer possessed the proud demeanor of the past. Her hair was disheveled, and even her clothes were in disarray. "I knew it would fail, I knew it," she muttered to herself, then suddenly burst into loud sobs. Kneeling on the ground and pleading incessantly for her family, I sat on the chaise lounge nearby, holding the child in my arms, my gaze filled with undisguised loathing. I knew that even if the Murong family fell from power, the emperor was sentimental. He would remember the affection they shared since his princely days and allow her to live out her years in the palace, but I would not allow it. The guards I had placed in her palace were well informed. Whenever someone from the Murong family died or was exiled, the Empress would surely be the first to know. She despises me, believing that everything was orchestrated by me. It's just a pity that even my once loyal Shan family was falsely accused by her and branded as criminals. In this lifetime, it is the Murong family's insatiable greed and countless misdeeds that have given me the opportunity to seek revenge. The emperor finds it unlucky even to glance at her. After the imperial physician had examined the two children and confirmed that all was well, the emperor returned to the hall of mental cultivation. The decree to depose the empress soon spread throughout the palace. Empress Murong, with her vicious and ruthless heart, plotted against the imperial heirs, deceived the emperor, and engaged in vanity and deceit. Originally, she was to be stripped of her position as empress, demoted to a commoner, and moved to the cold palace. However, with her malicious nature, she brazenly set a fire within the palace, disregarding the emperor's safety. In consideration of our past affections, I grant you the privilege of taking your own life. Amid the swirling snow, I seemed to see my former self lying in a pool of blood, dead with eyes wide open. Now, at last, my vengeance has been achieved. The eunuch on patrol stood behind me, telling me that on the way to the cold palace, the deposed empress continuously insulted and cursed me. I sneered coldly, my gaze fixed on the dagger inlaid with jewels. In this life, the emperor bestowed it upon me, but I did not want her blood to stain my hands. As my eyes shifted, Baiji understood my meaning and brought forward a small wine bottle. I chuckled lightly. Let's go, see off this empress. With the arrival of spring, I was once again blessed with pregnancy. In November of the same year, the 8th prince was born smoothly. At the same time, the emperor officially conferred upon me the title of empress. Although the 5th prince was young, he was diligent in his studies and strong in body, and the emperor held him in high regard, appointing him as the crown prince. After a long career in the officialdom, the elderly father was finally able to retire peacefully to his hometown, where he was beloved by the local people. My elder brother once again requested to remain stationed at the border to protect the region's safety, and the emperor gladly granted his wish. Thus, Empress Shen, who stood second only to the emperor and enjoyed boundless favor, became the most admired woman in the entire land. Wen Qing also grew up peacefully and happily under my care. In the year she came of age, everyone in the family came to attend the princess's coming-of-age ceremony. She shyly told me that she had feelings for the son of the Prince of Qingcheng, and he felt the same way, so, adding joy to joy, they immediately became engaged on the spot. I no longer had to worry that Wen Qing would be sent to a foreign country for a political marriage. In this life, I have ascended to that high position, protecting my daughter and my family. All those who have humiliated me have received the retribution they deserved. The nightmare has been completely shattered. From now on, I am the queen in a high position whom no one dares to bully, and I am also Shen Wanxia, living a happy and fulfilled life. End.